Okay, I would like to take this time to introduce everybody to the new four-wheel drive. Oh, wait a minute, hold on a second. Wrong tractor. This isn't the new four-wheel drive. That is. So, this is probably about the dumbest thing that I could have done this year, but, well, nobody's ever accused me of being smart. So, what we got here, well, I'm going to move it for purposes of this video, so let's get her warming up real quick. Door seal's weak just a wee bit. Where is my Oliver key? There it is. Okay, is everybody ready? Let her sit here and run for a minute. Get into the story about how I got this thing after I move it, but just real quick to tell you what we're looking at here. This is a 1984, as long as the serial number register list that I found is correct, because it's hard to find information on these 270s. According to the serial number, this is a 1984 white Ford 270. Biggest model they ever built. Also, I don't know if it's the lowest production. They made the 225, which was the baby for this series, but I don't know if they made, you don't really see hardly any 225s either, so I don't know if they made more 225s than 270s or what. But by serial number, they only made 926 of these. And there is debate as to whether the serial numbers are sequential or if there was skips. So nobody actually knows, because AGCO has all the documentation related to these and really won't release it, because in the buyout and the divvy up with Floyd County and AGCO, basically anything that said white on it, AGCO kept for the most part, and then Floyd County Museum got all the Oliver stuff. So they had the manuals for these, and I called Wednesday and ordered the manuals for it, so I got them coming. But as far as any build documentation or anything like that, AGCO's got everything, so nobody's really been able to research it, and the guys that were there don't even know. So there could have been fewer than 926 built. Some of them went to Australia. There's some that went to mainland Europe, so there's even less than that here in the United States. So yeah, needless to say, I'm not going to go out and say that they're super rare, but they don't come up for sale that often. Although that being said, counting this one, there will have been 3 offered for sale that I know of this year. At the same time, actually the same week that I started working on the deal for this one, there was one popped up for sale on an auction down in Flora, Illinois, and it was on super singles, no dual hubs, bareback, no 3-point, no PTO, just it might have had a PTO, but it didn't have a 3-point, it just had wide swinging drawbar. Decent looking tractor. Cosmetically, it was in a little bit better shape than this. There was some goofy stuff going on inside the cab. That one went for went up to 20,000 and was a no sale. And then just last week, at least last week was when I saw the listing, there was one popped up on Tractor House. It's over in Illinois somewhere too. It is they described it as a running rolling chassis. It's an engine 4 wheels and the frame and the power. It's basically a complete drivetrain with wheels and everything. I guess the way they described it in the video or in the description for the sale listing, they took that tractor and gutted it to fix a tractor that had been burnt in a fire. And the one that's in the picture on Tractor House looks like it was, before they parted it, a really nice straight tractor. So I don't know why you would kill a really nice straight tractor to fix one that had went up in a fire, but I digress. That's what they did. So basically with that one, it's on 20 point, it looks like 20.838 singles. It's got dual hubs on it, but the dual hubs don't come with it. So basically you get a frame, 4 wheels, and an engine and a transmission. And then they said they would offer the burnt cab and the burnt sheet metal off the tractor they fixed, and that's $16,000 right now. Of course, that's Tractor House price. Realistically, they'd probably get 10 for it. And we'll get into what I gave for this one when I move it. We'll park it over by the 150 so I can get away from the road. But she runs good. Don't mind that hose. For some reason, somebody made an extra long crankcase drain hose for it. That's gonna go away. Well, I'll show you when it's not running. But 3306 Cat, 4-speed transmission with a 4-speed power shift. And 24.532 tires. All the duals match, and all the inners, all the duals match the duals, and all the inners match the inners, except for this guy. This one's different. This is a Goodyear, and all the other tires on it are Firestone. Just these are just radial 23 degrees, and these are sat. So, but rubber on it's decent. It's probably 50%. Duals are a little more worn than the mains. I have the chin plate for it. They took it off because they changed an oil cooler or something like that in it. So I got the chin plate, and I got the screens that go here. Those are in the back of my truck. So far, the only thing I know that's missing off of it is the center link. I need one hitch ball, and I need to measure it, because this is actually, they have a Cat 4 hitch on them, but they're convertible Cat 3/4. So I need to measure, and either hopefully I can find and or have to have some made Cat 3 hitch balls for it so I can pull my ripper with it. But other than that, the only thing, need a center link for it, and there's supposed to be a battery box cover for it right here too, that's also MIA. It looks like it got ripped off the hinges at some point. So that might be a hard piece to find. If I can actually look at one on a tractor, might be able to replicate it. So let's move her over by the 150, and then we can go down the road of how I ended up with this thing. Cab obviously needs some work. Needs a cab kit, something fierce. Hopefully like a late 4210 or a 4225 cab kit is the same, or the headliner is going to be the interesting thing. I don't know. I've never done a cab kit before. I don't know if you just buy headliner material and put it in, or if they're supposed to be formed or whatever. But anyhow, 4 hydraulic outlets. The levers are either the cables or the linkage back on the back is froze, so none of the levers currently move. 3-point. Or sorry, PTO 3-point. I think this is for draft control, but everything's kind of too faded on the console here. Power shift lever, A, B, C, D, throttle and shifter. And everything in the dash works. All the lamps do their thing. I don't know why it's reading PTO RPM. TAC works, or hour meter works. It's got just shy of 3,400 hours on it. Ground speed works, oil pressure works, coolant temp works, battery, fuel, exhaust temp. So everything in the dash works. All the light switches work. Turn signals still work. So it does have a diff lock. I don't know if that works. I don't really have a good way to test it. Don't know what this switch does. So this has hydraulic brakes in it. That was something that upgraded that really needed to be done. And it takes a little bit of getting used to driving this thing because it's actually got like a two-part clutch. So you push it down to right about there, and this doesn't have an actual dry clutch in it, but for the purposes of this, we're going to call it a clutch. That engages the clutch to stop the tractor, and then you push it all the way down. That engages the transmission brake so that you can shift it. So it gets interesting to drive, or it takes some getting used to, because you're used to driving a tractor, and when you want to stop, you just stomp on the clutch and push it all the way to the floor. You can't do that on this, because if you do that, all of a sudden you're trying to stop the whole tractor and whatever you're pulling with that little transmission brake, which it basically looks, from what was described to me, it's one of the clutch packs out of an over-under. I think it's the big clutch pack. But anyway, so you're basically trying to stop the whole tractor with that clutch pack. So when you're driving it, what you do is you stop till you feel the first detent, hit the brakes, tractor stops, and then if you need to make a shift, then you push it all the way in. And then same as most of the other or newer model whites, all the way over is park. Third first, fourth second, and still two reverses. So let's go over. Nope, I lied. I want reverse. I don't know which reverse is R1 and which reverse is R2 because the numbers are gone. But when I brought this thing home, I had to, you know, park it out by the road to say, hey, look at what I got. Come on, there we go. When it's still cold, that clutch brake is a little weak, which I guess was a common ism if guys drove them where they just stomped on the clutch and pushed it all the way to the floor. big. I mean, it feels big. It ought to feel big. It's 300 horse. But the hood's massive. Everything on it's massive. Yet the cab is still the same size as the 4150. So there you go, there's your cab tour. Like I say, it definitely needs gutted, because it's not as bad as it was when I brought it home, but it smells like mouse piss in here really bad. Which I'm sure there's also some in the blower ducts and everywhere else, so. Which hopefully these are the same as some of the other white models too, because that one's got a broke fin. That one's okay. Everything about this is just so smooth. Like, it steers smooth. It's just, everything about it is smooth. Like, it's a shame that these things got killed so young, because when they came out with a 270, they finally had a four-wheel drive. Like, that was supposed to be a replacement for a large frame row crop tractor. This was supposed to be, you go out and you do all your heavy till. This was supposed to be their serious entry into the four-wheel drive market, and it was just too late. This tractor should have came out about 5-6 years sooner. But anyhow, how I got this thing. So we have to go all the way back to August, when I was working on that. Had to take the radiator out of it, and this is one of those cases where it had to be meant to happen the way it happened, because the way things fell together, it was just like it was fate. So I had to take the radiator out of that, took it down to a place called Tough Guy Enterprises. They're just south of South Bend here, just south of the ethanol plant, and take the radiator down there to get worked on. Well, that same day, I was going to a friend's house down there, friend's farm down there, to pick up a seed box to put my wheat seed in, because that bag that I had it in all winter and summer, the raccoons were getting into it. So from where Tough Guy is down a little back road there, they were only like 5-6 miles, kind of bumming back roads. Otherwise I had to go all the way out and come back around. And so never been down this road before in my life, never had any reason to go down that road, and if it wasn't for the fact that I was going straight from Tough Guy to pick up that box, I would have never had reason to go down that road to begin with. But that area is Big Oliver and White. There was basically at one time like 3 or 4 dealers that serviced that area, plus the tillage plant was like, you could throw a rock from where this thing was and hit where the tillage plant was. So that's a heavy, still to this day. There's Olivers and Whites floating all over down in that area if you look for them. So when you get down in there, you never want to really drive all that fast. So we turn, that's old 31 south there. Turn off on this little 2-lane road, just kind of bumming along, like, 30, 35 mile an hour, just looking. There's a lot of cool old dairy farms and stuff down. I mean, like old, like 1900s dairy farming and stuff down there. Just a bunch of cool stuff to look at. And I'm bumming down the road, and there's, fields and farms, and come through this little hollow and come out into this big open area that's all farmed. There's a big dairy farm, or looks like it used to be a dairy farm, or some concrete silos and stuff there, a bunch of big bins, big farm. And I'm just tooling along, and I'm gawking, and out by the bins there's this semi van trailer. And I guess to give you the perspective that I saw, so I'll picture the tractor sitting here, and when I see it, I'm probably, from where the tractor is to the road, it's probably like from here down to where the field makes the jog there, probably about that far back off the road, maybe a little further. So picture me all the way back there, and picture a semi van trailer parked to where basically all I could see was this rear tire, the rear fender tank, and the top, like the roof of the cab, poking out back behind this semi van trailer. Had I not been driving slow enough, and had I not looked at the right place at the right time, because you kind of had to look in between a couple things to even see it, I would have blown right past it and never even knew this thing was there. So that was how I noticed it, because this is the only tractor that used that big 300-gallon Fender fuel tank. Nothing else used it, so I immediately knew what it was. I mean, the 4325 used it, but they only made 4 of those. There was only 3 of them ever completely put together, and 2 of them are MIA, and 2 of them are in Charles City, so I knew it wasn't going to be a 325. If it was one of the missing 325s, that would have been lit, but then I probably really never would have been able to afford it. So anyway, I see that, and I blow right past the driveway because I'm kind of awestruck, and I'm like telling myself, don't stop, you don't need to stop, you don't need to see it. But curiosity kills the cat. So I made it probably a quarter mile down the road to the first driveway I find, whipped around, pulled in this farm, and this guy likes big horsepower. There's 2 1150 Versatiles sitting there on triples, a couple newer Ford, like newer, what would those be, like 9000 series, whatever the big, like the last Ford Versatiles were, but they're the Ford and then the New Holland Versatiles, the early ones, the ones that are still Versatiles. There was a couple of those sitting around. Guy's got big stuff. He's like geared up for like 400, 450 horse or bigger stuff. So anyway, pulled up to the shop. I'm jealous of their shop. It's freaking huge. And front door's open. They got a big back door, and I could see all the way out in the back. Out in the back lot, there's a guy out there working on a VT tool behind one of these 1150 Versatiles. So I yell and I wave to him so that he knows I'm there, and he waves me over, and I walk up to him, and first words out of my mouth, this is going to be a weird question because you don't know me from Adam, but is that a white 4270 sitting out there behind that semi trailer? And the dude's sitting on a little Matco stool, changing bearings on this VT tool, and he kind of gets his goofy look on his face, and he kind of looks back down at the tools in his hand, and then he looks back up at me with his big old grin on his face. He says, "Sure is. You interested in buying it?" And I was like, fuck, overplayed my hand there. Which, honest to God, I wasn't interested in buying it. I just wanted to look at it. I never in a million years knew that there was one of these things around here. Because even back in the 80s when these things were new, this was almost too big of a horse for this area. I mean, there were a few guys floating around in that 300, 400 horse range, but even back in the 80s, if you were 200, 250 horse, you were big time, and this thing was still massive for that time. So, never figured I'd see one around here, and I just wanted to look at it. So I talked to the guy for a while. He's an older guy. Turns out he wasn't the owner, but he had worked on that farm for forever, since he was like a kid. Basically the point where he's more of a family friend than an employee. And he told me that they bought this tractor secondhand. It was sold new somewhere down by Rochester, Indiana. They bought it new down there for that guy to drive, and basically for the vast majority of the time that they owned it, all it ever did was it pulled a big 30-foot no-till drill and it pulled their grain cart. He said every once in a while, and this is the cool part, they have a 22-foot experimental white offset disc still. I guess there was only 2 of them made. One of them went to Phoenix and one of them went to their farm. I guess I'm gonna try to get back with, well, we'll go down that road in a little. Anyway, every once in a while they'll pull that disc, and every once in a while do a little chisel plow, but for the most part, when they had it, all it ever did was pull that 30-foot no-till drill in the grain cart. So he said they never really worked it, which he also couldn't explain. I don't know if these were for, if somebody had a silage blade on it, or if it was for saddle tanks or what, but he also couldn't explain why these 2 big pads are welded on the front of it. That was pre him. So those are going to get cut off because those are fugly. So anyhow, I'm talking to this guy, and he's super cool dude. He grew up with Oliver and White. He said his dad farmed with Oliver and White and did a bunch of stuff with the South Bend plant too. And talking to him, and he said probably talked to him for 30-35 minutes. Super nice guy. And he told me, well, it's not my tractor, it belongs to, the guy's name's Mike, but I'll take your number down and give it to him and tell him you stopped by and wanted to look at it. And at this point I had already overplayed my hand enough. I didn't actually want to overplay my hand, so I never actually walked over and looked at it. At this point I never even saw the nose of it, because where we were standing in the shop, there was stuff in the way to be able to see the front of it. So at that point, all I had seen of it was that back corner in the top of the cab. So I left my number, and at this point, I was just getting started. I think it was the first day I got started working on the roof on the chicken coop. About 2 weeks later. Because honestly, I was really hoping that he just wasn't going to call. I was hoping he was going to blow me off and he wasn't going to put me in this position, because here we sit. Anyway, he called me back. It was a Saturday morning. Saturday morning. And probably talked to him on the phone for 45 minutes. Again, super cool guy. Like I say, he and his dad got to play with a bunch of experiment. They were in real tight with the experimental department there at the South Bend plant, and they got to test a bunch of experimental tillage and planting and all sorts of equipment on their farm. And I'm hoping, I was going to talk to him about it last Sunday when I picked this thing up, but they were busy trying to get going cutting beans, and I was trying to get out of his hair. So I still got his number. I'm going to try to call him when things slow down here, see if I can set up a time, because I really want to go talk to him and get him on video and have him tell some stories about working with the experimental department at South Bend, because I feel like he is like, I feel like he would be like a golden nugget of information, just cool stories and stuff. But anyway, I'm keeping on the 4270 topic. Where was I? So he called me that morning, talked to him for about 45 minutes. He said, well, here's the deal. I've been keeping that thing around. They hadn't used it. The last time it was in the field doing any serious work was 7 years ago. It's been sitting, unfortunately, outside ever since. He said, basically, we outgrew it, quit using it, but I always kept it around because I always wanted to go through and redo it and fix it up and make it nice. He said, well, we just got done going through restoring an entire line of 55 series. They did from a 1555 all the way up through a 2255. They just got done going through a full line. And he said, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of burnt out. Said, I don't know when I'm going to get to it. I don't really want to see it sitting. I want it to go to somebody who's going to enjoy it and use it, and I really don't want it to leave the area. He said, I have had 2 guys that have been hounding me to buy it, but he said, I know them, and what they're going to do is bring it home, shine it up, and then peddle it. And he said, I don't want that to happen because I don't want it to leave. He said, you come and look at it and tell me what you think about it, and we'll talk. So I think it was, I can't remember if it was later that same week. Nah, it wasn't that same week. It was a couple weeks later because it was my first week working down at Helena. I took off one afternoon, or left from work one afternoon, went down to look at it, and they had gotten batteries in it, got it running, had it pulled out in the driveway for me. I took it down, or went down there, got a good look at it, drove it for a lap around the barn, make sure everything worked, or make sure everything sounded good. Obviously I found out not everything works because the hydraulic levers are stuck. It won't make it into the fourth power shift because either the linkage is out of adjustment, or there's some holes wallered out, or it's just sticky from sitting. But you don't really make the first shift until the lever's like right here, and you don't really make the second shift till the lever's like right here, so you don't have enough slot left to make it to number 4. So I need to get that straightened, or I need to get that straightened out so that you can get all 4 shifts out of it. But it makes all 3, it makes the first, okay, I guess 3 shifts because you start off, and so then you make 1, 2, 3. But it makes the first 2 shifts, they're nice and clean and crisp, and which for as nasty as the oil looks in it is pretty amazing. So I have absolutely no qualms that power shift has anything wrong with it. It's a 4-speed. You're not just going to lose 1 gear because it's a planetary. So if you lose 1, you're going to lose 2. If you haven't lost 2, then all four gears are 99% sure they're good. So I went down, drove it. At that point, Mike, the actual owner, wasn't there. Again, I was talking to his son, another really cool guy. I'm really jealous of his 1655. He's got a really nice one, factory ROPS, all original. They make hay with it. She's a cream puff. But went down, looked at it, yada yada yada. Called him, I think it was the next day, and talked to him, and I told him give me a starting number because I didn't want to lowball him and insult him. He threw out $20,000. I did not want to spend $20,000. I didn't really want to spend any money this year. But here we sit. So I told him I'd have to think on it, and I thought on it for a couple weeks, and I thought on it hard. I mean, I was thinking of this thing at night while I was sleeping. I was thinking about it while I was at work. I have always wanted one of these. They're incredibly hard to find because they don't come up for sale that often, because the guys that still have them still run it. Like I'd say like 95% of these things that you find are still working tractors. Like the guys that have these things don't let them sit around as show ponies. Most of these that you still see are users. Like they are very, very well built, incredibly good tractors. And anybody you talk to about these things says you will hardly ever have to work on them. When you do, you have to get your wallet out, but that's not going to happen that often. You just take care of them, and they just take care of you. I'm not going to say bulletproof, but as far as the white 4-wheel drives go, these things were the closest they'd achieved to bulletproofing them up to this point. I mean, these are just damn good, well-built tractors. So most of them are still being used. They don't come up for sale very often, and when they do, auction results that you look at them are trending anywhere between about $25,000 and $32,000 right now. And they're probably not going to get any cheaper, because there's probably, like I say, there's probably a lot fewer than the 926 originally built, and you count the ones that have left the country, Lord only knows how many are actually left here in the United States in operating condition. So I never figured I would find one, and if I did, I figured it would be out west somewhere, and I'd have to have it hauled home or whatever. And I figured, I'm thinking if I ever did want to get one of these, we're talking years down the road. And then here I go bumming down a back road literally 15 minutes from home, and there's one sitting at a farm. And I mean, I am back and forth, and I mean, I had the money, but I knew that harvest wasn't going to go good this year, and I knew it was not a wise idea as far as being a smart economic decision right now. And in 2 more weeks, it might be a really bad economic decision, but that's neither here nor there. So, and I mean, I called out and talked to Dean, the guy that owns the 325s. I called and talked to him for about an hour and a half about it. And he said, if you want it, you probably need to buy it, because he said they just don't come up for sale. And I wanted one of these things. I remember the first picture I ever saw, I think, was actually on the old Big Tractor Power website back before he started the YouTube channel. He had a page on there about the AGCO 4-wheel drives. If I remember right, that's where I saw the first picture of one of these, and it was set up exactly like this. It was the picture and the setup I fell in love with. Had the 24 532s, duals, 3-point PTO, all shined up fresh out of the factory. They kind of had it cocked at a little bit of an angle, and they took the picture kind of down low. Oh, it was sexy. And I mean, this was the tractor that I fell in love with in that picture. She is set up exactly the same way. So the more I thought about it, the more it's one of those deals where if I didn't do it, I was going to regret it for the rest of my life. And if I ever managed to find one again, I was probably going to have to pay twice as much for it. And it sure as heck wouldn't be close enough to here that I could drive it home. So, fast forward probably another couple weeks from that, and I called him back and tried haggling a little bit more. I tried getting him to take 18 for it, but he was pretty firm at 20, and I can understand why, because honestly, it's a pretty fair price for what you're getting. It's like, okay, 20,000, but I need you to hold it for me until October. He said, normally I don't like doing that, but he says, you seem like you're really interested in it. I know you're going to use it. I'd rather have it go to somebody like you than the equipment jockey. So if you can get it by mid-October, 20,000 cash, we'll call it a deal. And this would have been back like end of August, beginning of September. So we had the deal. And then we fast forward to last Sunday. My original plan was to drive it, like I say, I got some friends live down there on another farm, just to hop, skip, and a jump. I think by tractor it was like 10 minutes away. My original plan was to go down there. I was gonna pay him for it. We were gonna drive it to my friend's farm down there and leave it there, and I was gonna have it hauled home from there, because tractor been sitting for 7 years. I didn't know it. It hasn't really done any work other than it drove around their farm a little bit while I drove it, and they moved it a couple times to get it out of their way. Other than that, it ain't done squat. So I was like, I'm not gonna drive the road you have to take. The route was about an hour and a half. I'm like, I'm not driving this thing an hour and a half home to get halfway here and have something break, because this thing's so massive that what do you do? What do you do? It's wide, it's massive. These Indiana roads are narrow. Like if something goes haywire, what do you do? So we go down there, get it paid for. Like I say, I wanted to get a chance to talk to him a little bit more, because that was actually my first time meeting him in person. Other than that, it'd only been phone calls. And they were busy trying to get going on cutting beans. You think my stuff's going bad. They were working on he said they were working on a 250 acre field of beans. They kept breaking combines, and he said it only been averaging 27 bushel an acre. I can't imagine cutting 250 acres of 27 bushel beans. That would just be buh. But anyway, so they were busy. I was trying to get out of their hair. So basically we got the parts around for the nose, and I gave him his cash, and he gave me some good batteries to put in it, and Shelly and I took off down the road. I had her go with me, and I made it probably 100 yards down the road, and I damn near turned around and parked it back at the farm, because you get over about 11.5, 12 mile an hour, and the flat spots were in the tires so bad it was making me seasick. But we trudged on, and I was able to bump it up, and I finally got it to run where I could run about 14.5, 15 mile an hour in between his farm and the farm I was heading to. So we get, I'm keeping an eye on the oil pressure. Oil pressure staying good. It carries like 50, 51, 52 pounds oil pressure. It charges. It wasn't getting hot. It was running like 169, 170 degrees. And there was literally no signs that anything was, there was no funny sounds, there was no funny smells, at least no funny sounds to me, because I'm not used to it yet. She's got some growls and groans and stuff, which I'm guessing is due to old oil and water in places it shouldn't be, and I think we go through and service it, a lot of those will go away. But like I say, it was like 10-15 minute drive from where we started to the farm we were heading to, and we whip in the driveway there, and Ray and Todd are their names, just stopped down there, and they were out by their dryer, and they walk out, and I'm talking to them. Probably stood there in the driveway, talked to them for 20-25 minutes, and this thing's just sitting there at a low idle, just in the driveway, just sitting there, just smooth as a kitten. 3306 cat, see what I did there? Just, I mean, she was not a, there was no leaks on the ground, like there was no indication whatsoever that there was anything wrong with it. So the more I'm sitting there thinking about it, it's like, you know what, we'd already made it like a third of the way, probably, well, not quite. We had about another hour to go from there, so roughly a quarter of the way ish back home. Like, you know what, screw it, no guts, no glory. Pulled out old Google Maps and figured out a good route to come from their farm, which really wasn't honestly that bad. And it's like, we'll get it home. It's not gonna be in anybody's way. I don't have to worry about it. Don't got to worry about trying to get it hauled. I already had a guy lined up to haul it, but he farms too, so it's gonna be a matter of when he got time. So it's like, screw it, we're just gonna drive it home. What's the worst that could happen? And like I say, about an hour and 15 minutes later, we pulled in the driveway. Not a leak, not a funny sound, not a funny smell, not a single issue with her. I've never seen a tractor want to perform so hard in my life. I mean, zero, absolutely zero problems at all. No fights, no fuss, no nothing. She wanted to go. So got it home last Sunday morning and went back to cutting beans. So that's the story. Holy crap, it's almost been an hour already. So down onto what it needs. Don't expect to be seeing this thing in the field at all this fall, because I don't got time to screw with it. I do have storage lined up for it this winter, and hopefully I can sneak it into their shop for a week or two and try to get some stuff done on it. It honestly doesn't need, I'm sure it's going to need more than what the first outward appearances are, but it's one of those things where you're probably not going to find it until you start using it. So what I know as of right now is the only working lights I have are the two in the front of the cab and the 4 flashers, so I need to get all the lights working. There's one missing off the back, I think, right? Yeah, I think there's one missing off of that fender. That one's missing a whole bulb and a grommet, but yeah, there's one missing off of this fender. So I need to get a light, get all the lights on it working. The flashers work. The flashers even work in turn signal mode, so that's right. Some other wiring needs straightened out, needs serviced front to back. All the oil's changed, coolant changed, filters changed, front to back, service the whole thing. And like I say, that right there, that's that hose going through that hole in there. That hose is going to go away because it's way too long. The grill needs a little bit of love. I'm not sure if this was screwed together originally or if it was originally spot welded and they screwed it, but anyway, this needs a little bit of work. There's a latch missing right here that shouldn't be hard to replicate. It's just a toggle latch. So that needs done. She needs a bath real bad. It needs a new turbo elbow because this one's been broke, and I think it actually re-broke. So when I get there's a separate engine parts book, and Floyd County had it, so I got a parts book coming for the engines. Hopefully I can get the Cat part number, and get, hopefully I can find a used one, because I can't imagine what Cat would want for that thing new if it's still a good part number. But I need a turbo elbow for it, and I think it's probably going to piss some people off, because, you know, there's a history of that on this channel, but it's probably going to get a straight pipe, because she sounds good. I think she would sound just with a straight pipe. So that might happen. I'm going to try to find a couple new hood emblems for it. This one's been broke. I think, is the other side still good? Okay, so if I can just find a hood emblem for that side and probably repaint the silver on them, or the white. Yeah, because these should have been, that should be white, like white, and then that stripe should be red, like that back there by the cab. The tin on this thing is just, it is super duper straight. I mean, there's not a wrinkle, there's not a dent. Like the tin on this thing is amazing. The cap for the top hat for the air cleaner is straight. I mean, the cab is straight. It's got a little bit of crust going on, but I don't think it's to the point where it's got any through holes or anything. I think it just needs cleaned up and primed and painted. Like I say, those are going to get cut off because they're fugly. Should have a toolbox right here, but that's missing. What else do we got? Like I say, need to figure something out for this battery box cover. I'm just going to put new batteries in it, get them wired up like they're supposed to be, because it's running off of doubles right now. It's supposed to have triples, it looks like. This battery box is big enough you might fit 2, but, and the book's going to tell me, but I'm sure they probably only ran 3. 4 seems like it'd be excessive. Even 3 seems like it'd be excessive, because the 2 that are in it, this one's not even hooked up. Those 2 crank this thing over like nothing. The biggest thing it's gonna need is this lower bearing's got some chunk in it, but even that is not that big of a deal to work on, because when they designed this thing, you unhook your shafts, and this entire center bearing carrier with top, upper, and lower bearings is just held in by, it looks like 6 or 8 bolts, and then that whole center bearing carrier comes out the back, and you can take it out on the bench and work on it and do what you need to do to it. So, and I mean, you look at this thing compared to the one in the 4150, everything, all the pins in these things are tapered, so if you start to skid any chunk in any of the pivot points, you just draw the pins up a little tighter, and it takes up all the slack, and you can tighten all the pivot points up in it. So that's cool. When they did this, it's like what should have been done on all the other tractors. It's got this center pivot section with split shafts to cut your steering angle, so you don't get the shafts hammering like what's famous in the other 4-wheel drives. Like, it's just everything about these things is just this is the tractor they should have been building to begin with. And from what Dean told me, they actually had these things designed like back in the 4175 4210 era. They just didn't bring them out because they didn't feel they had enough experimental data on them yet, so they were still, that's why they didn't come out until 83. Because they built them in 83. They didn't build them, they built like 19 or 20 of them or something like that in 83. They've built the vast majority of them, like 700 or 800 or something, in 84, and then they skipped 85, and they made a few in 86 and a few in 87, and then 87 was the end. So like this one's in 84, and that's the year they made that. That was the year with the highest production. So, but other than those things, it's just going to be a matter of freeing up cable or control cables, getting the hydraulics to work, like straightening out that power shift linkage, making that work, That way I can get all 3 shifts out of it, and change some, or get some hydraulic hoses and stuff changed, because some of them are looking kind of ratty. And other than that, at that point, you basically just need to put her in the field and start using it and find out what's wrong from there. Because, like I say, first out with her appearances, she came home with zero. Like, it should not have been that easy. It's just, she wanted to go. And I'm not going to try to weave you some bullshit tale about how this is good for the farm and I needed it and it was a wise choice. And this was purely a case of, I have always wanted one. I never figured I would find one. I was in the right place at the right time with the money. I'm not one of these guys you see my age just driving around in a $100,000 truck with a truck payment, and I don't take extravagant vacations. I mean, I spend money to basically live and pay my bills, and I spend money to farm. I never spend money on anything for myself, really. It's, well, the farming is for me, but, like, you know what I mean? I never like do anything extravagant. And I was like, you know what, screw it, I want it, it's here, I'm doing this for me. That's literally why I did this. I've always wanted one, it was here, I was here. She needed a good home, we're gonna give her a good home. That being said, it's not like I'm not gonna be able to utilize it. I have zero intentions of getting anything that's gonna use all 300 horses. And I'll bet she's every bit of 300, because the way she smokes when you wrap the throttle or like take off from a dead stop, somebody's been playing with the pump. But I'm gonna keep pulling the same finisher with it, that 24-foot finisher and basket. This thing won't even know that's back there. I'll be able to put the other 2 shanks on my ripper, pull my ripper with it. Again, 7-shank V ripper, probably won't even know it's back there. It would be nice one of these days to find like a 20-foot turbo till to put behind it, so this will give me the capacity to look into getting into a VT tool, which will be really nice. And obviously I'm going to have to get a little bit bigger chisel plow, because 2 things: it ain't going to know that 9-shank is even back there. I'll probably pull it in half, and I don't even think it'll cover the duals. Well, I know it won't cover the duals, because it basically is as wide as the 150, and this thing's got to be at least 2 foot wider than that. I haven't measured it yet, but so probably looking at getting like a 13, maybe a 15-shank chisel. I don't really need to go any bigger than that, because 1, I got field size to think about, and 2, I just don't need to pull her guts out. I want to get some stuff where you can kind of loaf along in a decent gear at like 1/2, 3/4 throttle, and just let her enjoy life and get things done at a decent pace. And because it's a 40-year, it's 2024, she's 40 years old this year, as scary as that is to think about. And she deserves to get out and stretch her legs. She just doesn't need to have her guts pulled out anymore. She's already lived her life, and now she's going to be in a working retirement, so to speak. And now that I got this thing, I am set for horsepower. I won't have to look at another tractor again for years. I have no desire to buy another tractor. I don't need a super huge collection. I'd rather have a smaller collection of cool stuff that runs good. And this was my unicorn. This is the culmination of everything that I always wanted. And that is why I had a name picked out for her before she even came home. And anybody that's ever seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds, which is one of my favorite movies, will know why I picked this name. Everybody, this is Eleanor. This is my unicorn. So we got the Silver Bullet and we got Eleanor. But between this, that, get that 110 going, or sorry, 105 going, it's not a 110. I'm super set in the 100 to 110 horse range. one of these days when that 2255 gets going, there you're in the 150 horse range. Like I am set for any amount of horsepower I will never need in my lifetime. So now I can focus on other things. Not that I needed this thing to begin with, but I wanted it. Sometimes you just got to do something stupid. So like I say, this thing will be the heavy tillage tractor. I'm not going to get rid of the little soil saver because some of the smaller fields will still be nice to use those two together. But this thing will do the finishing. I don't know if it'll happen this year or not, but the ultimate goal will probably be to throw the planter behind the 150 and start planting with that. And then the other tractors will just do whatever I need. So that's kind of where things are at, I guess. So I guess I joined a fairly small and kind of exclusive club, because like I say, there's not that many guys running that can say they own one of these, and there's a lot of guys that do own them own more than one. I know there's a farm down in it's like southern, I think it's southern Illinois. It's either southern Indiana or southern Illinois. There's a farm down there that runs a pair of them for tillage tractors. When I was talking to Dean, he said there's a guy up in Minnesota, I think he said, that's running 3 of them. There's a guy in Canada that actually went down the week I talked to Dean went down to see the 325s. There's a guy in Canada that's either running 4 or 5 of them still in the field. So I mean, there's guys running them, and parts are the biggest thing because they're a bastard child, and really the only thing that's super bastard about them is the power shift. You're not going to have trouble finding parts for that engine. It's a 3306. Those things they're 3306. The drivetrain in them is all 2 155 parts, 2 155 tubs, 2 155 gears. It's all 2 155 drivetrain, or actual drivetrain, with the exception that they put wider gears in the transmission, which is why it's 4-speed instead of 6-speed, because they didn't have room for the 3rd gear. Technically it's 2-speed with a high-low. That's how the Oliver transmissions work. So the 6-speed is actually a 3-speed with a high-low. You just do it all in one shifter. This is a 2-speed with a high-low, so that gets you the 4 gears. So that's why it's a 4 instead of a 6. It's still a 2 155 gear case. It's just got wider gears in it, and there wasn't enough room on the shaft for 3rd gear. So it's not in the power shift in these, as long as you take care of them. And he said the stuff I'm planning on pulling with it, as long as it shifted when I got it, he said I'll never have issues with that power shift. The only thing, the clutch brake or the transmission brake in them can be finicky sometimes, and this thing might get better as I use it because it's been sitting. And the guy I bought it from said they did do some work on that transmission brake at one point, so it has been worked on. It could just be weird from sticking, and like I say, there's water and stuff in places it doesn't belong, so you get good oil and everything, and that's also going to change how it acts too. So but anyhow, we've already been talking about this thing for an hour, and it's not like it's going to go anywhere because we'll be seeing it again. So but like I say, we're not going to see it in the field at all this fall. Don't plan on it, because you can't run anything right now because all the hydraulic levers are stuck, so that kind of kills it. But I'm not doing anything with it until A, get that bearing fixed, and B, go through and change every fluid in it front to back, all of it. So anyhow, that's my stupid purchase for the year. We'll see how bad I regret it when we get done with harvest. I can guarantee you that we aren't returning a profit now. It's gonna be hit and miss whether we were to begin with, but we sure as shit aren't now. So anyhow, I guess before I hit the hour mark, that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.